India's budding startups ecosystem that clearly is attracting a lot of talent towards the space. The flavor clearly, of Indian businesses over the last few years. And now we have some very exciting and dynamic entrepreneurs on our panel this afternoon. They will be discussing and debating on the startup ecosystem in India and would also be telling and sharing with us what really shaped up while we were all looking the other way. Ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together as I invite Amarjeet Singh Batra, CEO of OLX India. A huge round of applause there for him. We have Radhika Agarwal, co-founder shopclues.com. She is also one of the panelists. Amit Jain, President, Uber India. Come on, let's have some energy. We've just had our tea, coffee, and all the cookies. Welcome, Amit. Suchi Mukherjee, founder and CEO, limeroad.com. But let's tell you who's going to be moderating this session, and we have the perfect moderator for this discussion, the man who all of them probably would be going for funding. We have Sanjeev Agarwal, co-founder, Helion Advisor, and one of India's leading investors in startups. If I could request Mr. Agarwal to kindly come on stage to moderate the session. All yours, Sanjeev.
Thank you. So I'm going to share with you three very interesting numbers. First number is 2 trillion. Second number is 1 trillion. And third number is, let's make it up, 30 billion. Any sense of what these numbers could connote? Anybody in the panel? Okay.
GDP and 30 billion is the size of the women's market in women's market.
Your mic.
Women's wear market is about 30 billion.
Yeah.
1 trillion? I don't know. Somebody else will have to guess.
So 30 billion would be the size of e-commerce by, let's say, 2020. 2020. 1 trillion market cap
Of?
all consumer internet companies.
So you guys are close. So 2 trillion is the market cap of digital economy in United States, which is put together Apple, Uber, Google. 1 trillion is the market cap of Chinese internet economy. And $30 billion is the market cap of Indian digital economy, which is all the internet businesses that you can relate with. So the reason I cite these numbers is a lot of people ask this question that has this story already played out. And to my mind, these architects of modern India are just about starting this journey. And as an investor investing in this asset class, we believe that this has just started. Because only 1 percentage point of retail is being dealt through online channels. So we believe that between 500 billion to $1 trillion of market cap will get created in India over next decade. Because we lag China by about 7 to 10 years in most sectors that we participate in. So I think that is the potential that all of us are playing to. And now I'm going to turn to each one of you. If you can share with the audience very briefly what your business is, what is the opportunity, and what kind of an impact it will have on all constituents. It could be workforce, consumers, investors, GDP. Over to you all. Radhika, you want to start?
Thank you, Sanjeev. And fascinating numbers. And I'm into crossing China in very near future and the US eventually as well, because the opportunity is immense in India. Right now, Indian retail is somewhere around 650 billion, and E-commerce is 9 billion, hardly. So we are 1.5% of Indian retail. So there is just, we get asked the question all the time that, has the race, has the war been fought already, and have the winners been announced? We feel that the game hasn't even begun. For most of us sitting here, it hasn't even begun. We've just scratched the surface. So going back to what we do, ShopClues is a mass marketplace. We started in 2011, and the thought process at that time was that e-commerce in India did not necessarily resemble how the Indian consumers were really shopping offline. Offline, I think 70-80% of your purchases, or even more, are actually done from your local bazaars, right? You go to your sector markets, you shop from Sharma and Sons, and you go do your groceries from Agarwal and Sons. But Indian e-commerce at that time was primarily Flipkart, and that looked more like a mall. We felt that to get the Indian consumer on board, to get the Indian consumer to come and shop online, the marketplace model was probably the only model that would work, wherein we could get small and medium enterprises to come and sell on the platform. 4 years now, we have about 300,000 merchants who sell on the platform. We ship out about 3 million products in a month. And we have over 100 million visitors who visit the site on a monthly basis. And the growth has been absolutely immense and very, very fascinating to actually notice the trends that have been going on. What are the problems that we are truly trying to solve, right? Two things. Firstly, trying to make the business more digitized for the small and medium merchant. That is the focus that we have. And that is how we continue to differentiate ourselves from pretty much all the other online players. 46 million small and medium enterprises in India. 1/3 of them sell something for a living. Our plan is to get most of them to come online and sell on our platform. That is the opportunity we are trying to solve.
Yeah, normally start with, knowing at least if anybody has used OLX in the audience. Not many? Okay, fantastic. I normally get a 60-70% people, so I think a lot of you may not have tried OLX. I would love you to at least give it a try and see, because we actually are a very unique business actually in India as well as globally. So this is a classified business. We call it a marketplace, but we don't buy anything, we don't sell anything. And it's more of a platform where people get to connect with each other and are able to buy and sell to each other. But it's primarily individuals and stuff that it is not necessarily e-commerce. So stuff that you'd own at home, it could be a car, it could be a bike, it could be a mobile, it could be a furniture. But we also then work across other categories like local jobs and real estate and so on. It's a globally accepted category, very, very big. I didn't invent it in India. Yes, but we created the market in India because market for such things didn't exist here. So globally, this should be about a $100 billion plus market. But I normally don't look at the big numbers, because in the end of it, when you look at the country, which we all mentioned here, I think there's a long way to go. We have actually created the market here, because people, when we started here, never used to buy and sell stuff they owned. I mean, it used to be either you kept on hoarding this, or you give it to your friends or families, or keep it till that time when it will become a junk and somebody give it out there. So I think we have changed a bit of a way Indians work, and I believe that the response that we get, I was on the site across India, I think we see that there's a lot of impact that we are making in the economy. And the reason we say about making impact here is because the seller gets a better price, because he's selling directly to a potentially buyer. There's no middleman involved. The buyer also gets a better price because he or she is actually buying from the seller directly. And then in the end, it's about not about new goods. So you're actually, most new goods in the country, if you'd see, at least in the consumer sector, is imported. So if you trade a second-hand good for a long time, you save foreign exchange. You increase the life of your product, so it improves the eco health of the country. And overall, I think the environment also improves. So I think we truly believe that we are a business which is about everybody wins. And these are the kind of businesses which are changing, they're disrupting. and they are kind of creating, their own space. And I think we'll talk about it a bit more. Just an example, I think there are many, many beautifully created businesses which are disrupting it. So I believe that India is, going through a very interesting curve. The market is still open. There are lots of great ideas, a lot of great entrepreneurs. Some of you will start businesses tomorrow. So I am looking forward to the chat. Thank you.
So 21% is what India's share is in global manufacturing of lifestyle. We don't even account for 21% of global population. We're about 17%. It's the only segment in the world where we have that kind of market share. And that is huge. And that lifestyle, and that's at factory prices. And that has been the bread and butter and bedrock industry of India exports and domestic manufacturing for lifestyle for the last 60 years. That is going to get disrupted. And it's going to get disrupted for one reason and one reason only. Wherever you take any industry in the world which has had size and where the cost of production and the cost of retail has had a huge delta, that always gets disrupted. And in retail, lifestyle retail, the cost of manufacturing, if it's 10, the cost of retail at the price at which we buy in malls and et cetera, across the world is anywhere between 5 to 10x. That's a lot of X. LimeRoad basically disrupts that. And it's the only place in the world it can be built because it looks at India, manufacturing. And the single goal is to A, bring lifestyle suppliers on the platform. There are about 20 million SMEs and micro industries, 20 million, of which only 2% are online. A, bring them in. 2, make it highly visually discoverable. Because when you go to a mall, you typically don't shop out of thok. You don't look at JPEG images. You look at beautiful mannequins. You do window shopping. So that's what LimeRoad does. It fundamentally brings all the supply on the platform, and it has user-generated content that curates everything and makes it look like this beautiful infinite mall. So for example, if you watched last night's or tonight's Quantico, whatever look will be in Quantico, I believe the season is over, but whatever look will be on Quantico tomorrow morning will be on LimeRoad. That's the power of the platform, right? 15 to 20% of Indian women, so we focus only on women because it's the hardest market to crack, but 15 to 20% of Indian women come to LimeRoad nearly 10 times a month. And we have 9% conversion rate on our app. Now, I'll tell you what that means. It just means that we're mimicking offline behavior. Women go to the store and say, "Aaj dekhte hain, naya kya hai?" That's what they do. And that's all they do on LimeRoad, naya kya hai. And there's an infinite stream of naya kya hai being created by millions of women and men in India. So what we've fundamentally done is we have broken down the barriers to either be a seller or to be a stylist. So it takes 60 seconds to open a store on LimeRoad. 60 seconds. Your kid can do it. And it takes 60 seconds if you have an eye to create a look on LimeRoad. And in another 60 seconds, you could be posting that and starting to sell. That's what we're doing. We're disrupting lifestyle and building, hopefully, the next generation of millions of women and men entrepreneurs. And I'll leave you with one story. We were in Bangalore meeting our community. There's a woman, she's a cancer patient. She came and she has an autistic child. Her autistic child can barely do anything. And she discovered, this lady discovered this styling on LimeRoad. And it was so easy. She showed it to her autistic child. And this autistic child kept doing it. And she made 50 looks of her own, beautiful color, 50 looks of our own that day. We're changing lives.
Right, thank you, Sochi. So back to the original question of kind of what is the opportunity. I think kind of one of the common themes that we are hearing from everybody on the panel is, how do you bring digital efficiency to the physical world? And how do you change the physical infrastructure? How do you change existing assets? And combine what we call in our terminology, how do you bring bits and atoms together? So as we think about Uber and the opportunity, for Uber, our vision is to make transportation available to everyone, everywhere at the push of a button. To make transportation as ubiquitous as any other utility. Be it running water, be it electricity. As we think about the constituents and the various components of the change that we are bringing, there are a couple of components of society that we think about. Obviously, there's a huge value proposition to riders. So how many of you have taken an Uber ride before? It's about 10-20%.
And how many have taken Ola?
I don't see any hands. So there's a huge value proposition to riders. The value proposition to riders and is more striking in India because the delta between an Uber ride versus your next best alternative is much bigger than the delta in a developed world. So in the US, in the UK, where you've got forms of public transport, where you've got other cab options, the delta is huge. The delta is not as huge. In India, the delta is huge. So that's one aspect. The second aspect is the difference that a business like this makes to the lives of our driver partners. So in India, we've got about 250,000 driver partners on our platform today. And if you take an Uber ride, I encourage all of you to do that and talk to some of the driver partners. It's striking the fundamental change in lifestyle for many of them. So it offers them a flexible lifestyle. It offers them more pay than what they probably had elsewhere. They can take their son or daughter to school when they have to because there are no fixed hours. So the flexibility, the entrepreneurship it provides, and especially in a country like ours where we have to create jobs. We've got people who come on our platform, they buy one car, over a couple of months they buy a second car, they buy a third car. So the entrepreneurship opportunities. The third aspect, obviously is our cities. As we look at Delhi and all the debate around pollution, around congestion, one of the things that makes a smart city is the pillar of transportation. There are a couple ways to go about transportation, right? You can build more public transport. You can build more infrastructure. Those take time. What we are doing, again, is bringing technology to solve some of the issues that face us today with the infrastructure that is available today. So one of the things we launched very recently was carpooling. 70% of cars in Delhi have one person in the car. So how about we change that? How about we make that 2? How about we make that 3? How about we make that every seat in every car is utilized? And how do we use technology to solve the challenges that our physical infrastructure has today? And how do we do that with, again, a vision towards, from our perspective, to make transportation ubiquitous while serving all our components of society, which it benefits immensely.
Thank you, Amit. I think we have entrepreneurs here trying to disrupt retail, transportation, lifestyle, media. So this is a very eclectic group of people. The question, I think, which a lot of investors are asking folks, that probably Indian online retail is maybe $10 billion of goods get sold online. And I'm told, I don't know for sure, that you guys lose about $3 billion a year. So is this sustainable, or will the wheels come off? Anybody wants to take a shot at this?
I'll take that one, because we get asked this question all the time, that how is it sustainable? The customer cost of acquisition for a lot of the market leaders is crazy. The discounting is crazy. And I think that's one question that even the consumer is asking, that how long is it going to sustain? But Sanjeev, what really happens is, and you probably know it better than any of us, that when you're building a new industry, there are certain hooks that you have to give the consumer to be able to change their lifestyle. You have to make it easy for them to come online. You have to give them a reason to do that. And this is what discounting did for the first 2 to 3 years of the industry. Let's not talk about a specific player per se. Discounting, very, very critical. The burn, it was important. But at this point, when we go out and talk to investors, they want to know about the path to profitability. They want to know when are we going to break even and when are we going to start making money. It's also the life cycle of the maturity of the industry, and I think we are getting there, probably another couple of years for the industry to continue to grow larger. But that's a question that I think that will be answered fairly soon.
Actually, I might have a slightly different view on that. I think the hook in any industry, and I think sustainability, is very hard to give the consumer a hook that ceases to be a hook later. I just fundamentally believe it. So that hook somehow has to be sustainable for industries to be sustainable. And so at LimeRoad, the way we think about it is that you've got to create something that fundamentally solves a problem for a user for a lifetime. And disruptive value has only been created when you do that. And that is never easy. That is never easy. So what at LimeRoad we do is we give you enormous accessibility that fundamentally you will absolutely never have. You cannot access what Priyanka Chopra is wearing on Quantico next morning. That's it, period, end of story. That's enough for women, right? And I'm just giving you a use case. So I think you've got to create something which is phenomenally disruptive. And if that is what you're creating, then I think the second piece holds, which is what Radhika's point was, that I think initially the burn is higher, frankly, because our cost of capital was lower. Reality is, if I look at some of you, and if you're in traditional businesses, your cost of capital is higher, potentially, than what we need to incur. And I think cheap capital makes you a little bit lazy and makes you a little bit less disciplined. So could we have burnt less? I think we could have, because you'd focus on the right fundamentals. And so, but having said that, we burnt and we acquired. And what we did is we just accelerated the rate of growth. That's it. That's what we've done. We've accelerated the trajectory by burning. And I think fundamentally the next step has got to be, Sanjeev, sustainability will come if the sustainable proposition that you built is sticky enough that users keep coming back to you. Fundamentally, if you have to keep reacquiring users, you're gone. There's no sustainability.
Completely, I'll take 1 minute here. Completely agree with you, Suji. Typically what happens, and I'll tell you a sharp clues when we started, we were the 35th e-commerce entrant, right? There were two large players, Flipkart and Snapdeal, sitting there with significant money that they had already raised. How do we make an impact at that time? We actually used discounting as a beautiful hook. 98% of the products, of the orders that we were getting, and the way we were spreading our word was through discounting. Right now, discounting contributes to about less than 0.02% of the GMV on the platform, but the kind of growth that it gave us, the kind of a marketing platform that it turned out to be for us was absolutely phenomenal.
I think the fundamental question is not about the hooks or something. I think it's about what e-commerce or businesses are doing. I think they're changing habits. And I think if you are changing habits, then you need to have then hooks or triggers for changing those habits, whether it is in the case of car or it's case of, let's say, OLX kind of businesses or e-commerce. You're actually getting people to do something different than what they do. Either that is they're replicating a behavior. In case of e-commerce, it is offline behavior to online behavior. In case people don't actually act on the selling of their second-hand goods, or at least they use channels which are unproductive, and we are kind of change that. And maybe in case of cars, it's about sometimes you use your own cars when you can actually be much better for yourself, more cheaper, as well as for the country or the economy and the pollution that we have today, to use a rented car like Uber. So I think the habit change is not doesn't happen in a day. It takes time. And I think India has an advantage of being a very, very large consumer country. Excess of stuff across the markets for everybody is not as good. So if you look at the goods that you can afford in Delhi, you'll be very surprised. You go to a small town, they are actually, they thirst for such stuff that you can buy here. So e-commerce would be able to reach stuff which is not there. Like the way Indians used to go out and shop outside of India till about a few years back because it was not available in India. Same way rural India or the smaller towns are able to buy stuff that all of us can afford here. So I think that again is this thing. The third thing which internet is changing the way I think there is the information. The information disruption, the availability of pricing, the availability of stuff and getting to the real value of stuff. I think that the whole education piece, I think they are a very, very nascent organization as a country in terms of internet. We get exposed to internet from US and so on, which are very advanced economies. 80% of the people are on the internet today. Here we are after, 15 years. I've been in 2000 I joined internet, I think it's still about 30-35%, not even there. So I think the whole market is very big. The potential for the future is high. People need to invest to help change the habits, to help reach out to people who are not yet touched by this thing, and that requires investment. And that's where the money is being spent by most of the people, and I think it is being done in a good way. Yes, I think in the hype of stuff, people will overspend some time, but effectively a lot of that money is actually helping build this economy.
So what I hear you say is that this is a investment phase and there is light at the end of the tunnel. That is what entrepreneurs tell us. So we will see whether investors end up making money or losing money investing in Indian tech entrepreneurs.
Yeah, can I just add one statement?
But in God we trust.
I think in people we trust.
Yeah.
I think just to add one statement to the debate. So definitely companies are in the investment phase. Many are in the investment phase. I think the key criteria for any company is, Sanjeev, you know this better than anybody else, the unit economics have to be positive. Or the unit economics can get to a stage that is positive. Right? It's relatively easier, it's very easy to build a company where it can continue to burn. But how do you change that to one where when needed, when habits have changed, or when the hooks have been established, and you've reduced a painkiller and not a vitamin, so you're solving a true pain problem, you can make the unit economics positive. That's the key to any sustainable business. And sometimes, as young entrepreneurs, many lose sight of that, but that's the ultimate key.
Thank you.
Sanjeev, there's one thing I think is underappreciated possibly in the internet world, which is the power of what technology investment can do. I think people just keep seeing this investment as marketing dollars spent or discount, but I think there's a huge amount of technology investment, and I can tell you at LimeRoad, 70% of the wage bill is technology, and that is pretty much most of the fixed cost. The point being that when you invest, you're able to create disruption which fundamentally alters behaviors. For example, by allowing people to build a store in 60 seconds. Now that's a classic investment. I think that's underappreciated, and I think that's worth tabling. Because once you build that, the path to profitability, I think is in my mind, obvious.
Mm-hmm. And what is your sense? I mean, we have two of you, Amar and Amit, representing global corporations trying to take a crack at this market. And then we have two of you, which is Suchi and Radhika, homegrown entrepreneurs. And we've seen this in travel, Make My Trip versus Expedia, e-commerce, Amazon versus Flipkart versus ShopClue. So can you guys comment on who's likely to win this?
First of all, I think this global versus local is more of this thing. How many of you think OLX is a global company and how many of you think it's local? How many of you think it's local? Everybody. I think not maybe, but I think I've met people. I think I've never met anybody who actually said OLX is global.
So let me rephrase my question.
Yeah.
Companies started by founders and companies which have created subsidiary as part of a global corporation.
I founded OLX in India. So now I don't know if I should consider
So maybe then Amit is on one side and three of you are on the other side. So Amit, between Uber and Ola, how do you think about this? What do you think are your advantages of winning this versus a very fleet-footed local entrepreneur, whom, by the way, we are investors in, as a disclaimer?
Got it. See, I think times have changed. I think there was a time earlier when there was, a perception which was, you got to be a local company, and if you're not a local-born company, you don't understand the local environment. And if you're a multinational coming in, then it's a different cultural aspect, it's a different, mode of operation, and you're not going to succeed in the market. I think where we are seeing is that changing, and all the three panelists will disagree with me. But where we are seeing that is that changing very rapidly. So, if you take our example, in Uber, if you take an Amazon, and Radhika will disagree with me very strongly, the execution is tailored very, very closely to what the Indian market demands. The companies are becoming better and better at adapting themselves to local markets. How do you roll out products that are catered to the local infrastructure conditions? Be it not as good network coverage, be it not as good transport infrastructure. So the agility of a multinational, the agility of being able to change is tremendous. Uber is in 67 countries today. We've got local competitors like the one you invested in many competitors, and we compete aggressively, and in most cases, win in the markets, which I'm very confident we'll win here as well. But we compete aggressively, and the advantage that we have is we've got seamless technology, we've got seamless processes, and we've got technology that can help us scale. Our mantra from a multinational company is to solve problems through technology and processes. The headcount that we have in India of people is 10%, less than 10% of the headcount that competition has. So how do we achieve the same scale? How do we go at a faster rate?
Then you aren't generating enough employment in the country. As a foreign corporation, it's your responsibility.
250,000.
No, I'm kidding.
Private partners on our platform.
I'll give you a perspective. I think a little different one. Actually, I believe that there are two ways to look at global versus local. I think if you look at people running the company, whether they're entrepreneurs or professionals or whatever, I think the employees, I think we're all Indians, I think, aren't we? We are all Indians, yeah. So that is the first point, actually. So I think in the end of it, it doesn't matter. The second is about ownership. You might be a global company like Uber, and I think now OLX is also global. I think we are having global ownership. But isn't the companies in India, which are run by Indian entrepreneurs, also have investments which are coming from outside? So, I mean, like you invest, where does the money, which Indian investors are putting your money in your fund, which goes to them? So the money which is running the Indian companies in e-commerce, whether run by Indians or Indian globals, they're all global money. So the fact of the matter is that as long as you're running a local Indian company and you're running a business which actually is impacting the lives of people within India, I think you're local.
Okay,
and
I have to ask one more question.
That's the point.
I think we are running out of time. So I have to ask one more question. This making money eventually and coming out of the investment phase, I think that we get. But given the hyper competitiveness of Indian industry, do you think by the time you guys begin to make money, somebody else will come and disrupt you? So you are disrupting Big Bazaar, and by the time you have done your investment phase, there is another young entrepreneur like Radhika, you or Suchi like yourself, who will disrupt the ones who are already getting to their path to profitability. So are we chasing something which is elusive? Because in India we have American companies like Amazon, we have Chinese like Alibaba, unlike China, where the market is very closed and therefore there's a lot of money to be made. We are in a super hyper competitive industry. So my question is that, will this ever make investors money?
Rajeev, can I take a stab
Yes.
at that, right? I think it actually ties up with your previous question. I think the fundamental things I think there are two fundamental things. One, as an entrepreneur, it's extremely easy to get carried away with all this valuation hangama and hype and the growth, I'm growing 100% month on month and all of that kind of stuff. I think fundamentally entrepreneurs who are building anything have to continue to look at themselves in the mirror every morning and ask that question, which I raised about 20 minutes ago. Are we building something sustainable? Have we solved a customer problem like nobody else has? Because if you're not doing that, and you're not staying hungry, foolish, humble every day, because every day is day one, then you will get disrupted. That's the laws, that's Moore's law, okay? It's going to happen. And then this whole global, local debate becomes valuable because then you will have an Alibaba who's had 15 years of accumulated experience at an equally broken economy to come in and build something disruptive. So I think the number one thing that entrepreneurs that need to remember and will succeed is don't get carried away. And the only thing you should celebrate is if you're building something sustainable, which is hard to replicate. Hence my question about the hook. I think that's number one. That way, you build a moat around you. That's the only way you build a moat around you. It's hard to disrupt you. And I think the second thing is, you've got to think about profitability not in year 10. It's just mathematics. Yeah.
I think the way we...
Any prospective entrepreneurs in this room? Sorry, Amar. I wanted to actually open this Q&A session. So any prospective digital entrepreneurs in this room? Okay. So would you like to have some questions for the panel, or should we keep having this conversation? We have about 9 minutes left.
Sanjeev, before we take questions, we'd love to get your perspective on this.
Yes.
The same question. As an investor sitting on the other side of the table, what do you think is going on, and who is going to come in and disrupt us, and are you constantly watching out for that? And how do you guide the companies that you invest in to be able to avoid this to happen?
I am the moderator, not you.
Is it okay? Do you guys want an answer to that? Does everybody want an answer to that? Sorry, Sanjeev. Popular demand.
So I think when we look to invest, we look to invest behind two things. One is the horse, which is the market that you're trying to disrupt. And other is the jockey, which is great people like you sitting in the room. It's no science, it's very, very intuitive, but large markets waiting to be disrupted create a lot of value and some early mover advantage. For example, our investment in Big Basket is a good example. Half of Indian retail is in grocery, and taking grocery online is a very large opportunity. So we have invested in what we think is a leader in that sector and potentially can create a lot of market capitalization for our folks. And I think the second question I have no answer to, that where will the disruption come from? We worry less about the existing grocers turning online because their DNA is very different in the context of Big Basket. But will a young entrepreneur someday come and start a subscription business where your grocery gets delivered, or will Uber get into that area because they already have such a strong transportation infrastructure? So I think the toughest part to which we don't have an answer is where will they get disrupted from? They certainly will not get disrupted by the incumbents. I think incumbents have a very different DNA. And therefore, we do worry about the hyper-competitiveness of this country. Every sector, whether it is telecom, retail, BPO, I think we are just a very, very entrepreneurial country. And we are the last large internet market left anywhere in the world which is underpenetrated. So is that an opportunity to create $1 trillion market cap? The answer is yes. What is not clear is how much capital will it consume before this bloodbath gets over and we get into a phase of consolidation.
I had an answer to that question a bit, because I think sometimes disruption also is a word I think which has been most overused actually. I guess disruption is actually completely changing the way things happen, I think, and I think typically and the reason I think people spend money or trying to go after a larger market is not that we are hungry or we are doing a land grab alone. Yes, all those things are important, but the reason we are doing is that we are trying to build this larger base of users who are actually into the habit of using your product and services. And the larger you become, in terms of your scope and this thing, the more you learn, because actually we are very data analytically sound companies. The larger you learn, the innovations you do on your product, which we call it incremental innovations, actually allow us to get better and better. So when you are really big and you are actually solving problems for your customers and you're able to actually also make impact in their lives so that they actually use it as your product or service as a habit, then I think disruption becomes very difficult, because the barriers that we've created for a disruptor is much higher. Now, there are two types of disruptions they can do. They can come up with a similar business like ours, maybe a slightly better one. Most of our companies, most of us actually are also agile to try to have our own innovations in-house, or maybe have separate innovations which we can do to because we can morph into those things much faster than they can do. Because what do we have? We have a larger base of customers. They are starting from zero. Now, the only thing which is scary is, I think your point, is that somebody comes up with a model which is completely different and do that. I personally feel that those things are little, you can actually, if you're smart, you can actually look at them. And I'm not saying that I'm smart, but I'm saying that you can look at them, because I haven't seen a disruptive model coming completely in India. So the disruptive model will happen somewhere outside in China or US. So you can look at them and I think get prepared for that, whether you want to change to that model or you want to prepare to protect yourself with the model. So I think that the businesses that building in India, lots of them are building for very, very long term. Yeah, and I think that you will make money, for Excellent. Sure, I'm quite sure.
Amar, so we are out of time. I think we have only 3 minutes left. So any question from the audience? Yes, sir. Maybe just one of you can, then we can cover more questions.
I think the key challenge that we have is about people. I think the overall, if you look at it, I think we talked about the horse and the jockey and the horse. I think the jockeys is not entrepreneurs who run the business, it's the people, the team behind it which run the business. I think a lot of credit goes to people like maybe, all of us do that, but actually it's our team which executes. So the team actually is very, very critical, and India has a paucity for people in the internet space, but I think it's changing. So that is one big area. The second is the ecosystem challenges. I think the overall ecosystem is also very broken, from internet connections to TG, feature phones to 2G and all that stuff, to a logistics, to lots of areas. Those things are broken. So that again is big. The third challenge also is that there are too much imitation. So I think it spoils the market for some time, because people actually go and they're able to do the same thing because some investor invests in them, and they repeat the thing and they bring the market. So because India is a large country, people would want to participate in that.
What about the size of our economy? Is that a limiting factor? Because when we look to evaluate companies, what we find is that for it to create venture capital type of returns, most businesses tend to be subscale in the country. So the fact that we are just a $2 trillion economy which you're trying to disrupt, is that the biggest constraint?
I think that's the biggest constraint. I think there's a reason why you see these all of us, I think, in continuously investing, because the market is not mature. Internet population is about 1/4 of the overall actual population. The market is so big. How many brands, if you see offline, have taken the whole market? Nobody has it. So for us to go out and service the cities and the states and the rural, it's a completely large ball. It's not easy. We do our marketing. We have to go down to regions and we tweak it because we know it's so difficult. So that I think is the biggest challenge.
Sanjeev, can I take that differently? So that's right. So $2 trillion of GDP. I think if you think about it, is basically the gap is that the per capita buying power is low. We have 1 billion, it seems like a large number. Frankly, they can't buy. So the per capita buying power is low. But the cost of servicing, irrespective of which industry you take, the cost of servicing, because of broken fundamental infrastructure, is high. So because therefore your per capita, at a user level, your per capita buying power is low, the cost of facilitation of whatever service you're doing is high. I think that's the biggest fundamental challenge of this market for venture funds, I think.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
What is your uninstall rate of apps? I want to find out that what is the uninstall rate of all the apps which you have. The reason of asking this question is I want to debate the effective utilization of apps for e-commerce. In fact, look at your presence, which is there on the browser-based applications and now on the app-based application. So give us this figure very, very accurately. Thank you.
I think we can
but we need to give a very
short
quick,
of time,
quick
so we can
answer.
take a couple of questions and we can answer one by one quickly.
Yeah.
So I think we got your question. Let's have 3-4 more questions, and
Yes,
I think
sir.
we can.
Yeah, hi everybody. You know, the confession that I want to make first here is I enjoy my newspapers more these days because the first 2 pages are always filled with you guys blogging us, blocking us, bullying us, turning us, whatever. And that hook is always hanging all the time over there. The rest of the newspaper goes flat back because then the family get up, hey, did you see this? We need to do this, we need to do that. That's first part. Second, you talked about sustainability. Does anybody of you or anybody in this market knows what is the sustainability cycle is? Whether we believing on the sellers or on the buyers. We talk about investment phases. Aren't we concerned about the policies of the government which comes up, for example, taking your consideration of diesel, which is a strong point today, and we talk about investment to make it a point in the next season. So where are we going? Today you talk to the children. What do you want to do? Dad, I want to invest in e-commerce. Dad, I want to do event management with weddings and all that. I mean, these kids of today have got only these 2 things in their mind to think about. And this bubble is going to burst any day, which is my fear. I can't stop my children because I don't want to discourage them. But that's the fallacy which you guys are living on and breeding it further to an extent where it is becoming an eyewash to me. That's my take. No personal offense.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
So
Let's
sorry,
take one more
I quickly
question.
want to answer that one, Sanjeev,
Yeah,
because I
okay.
think that was a very relevant one. You have to look at us as people who are building an industry. We are all agile enough to change our business model if needed. But we are building organizations over here. Suchi is building an organization that's running on a specific business model right now. In the future, if something needs to change, will you be able to do it?
Yeah, and I think, to Radhika's point, I think, sir, your apprehension is completely right. If I was sitting there and I wasn't building a business, I would have said, hey, you jokers, what are you building on? We haven't had a single IPO in the last 5-6 years in this country. How the hell are investors ever going to get their capital out of this country? And what are you relying on? Sir, your apprehension is valid. But I will tell you what Radhika is saying, and I will layer it on. Sir, in the next 10 years, our children, your children, will have a plethora of opportunities to build careers, to find hobbies, to find lives that they truly love, that they would not have. And I promise you, and we're doing that every day, and I promise you, even if we didn't make Sanjeev money, which I'm sure we will, but even if we didn't make Sanjeev money, we will change the economy forever in a positive way. And I'm happy to share more user stories, but we're changing lives, sir.
Let's pick the last question from there.
And we'll answer your question.
Okay.
This question is to Amit. Sorry, my name is Vijay. I come from an energy company, sustainable energy. My question is to Amit. I used Uber for the first time a few days ago, deep down south, where I was not getting a car. And in just 2 minutes, I could get a car. because I hooked onto the app. And when I just reached this place in Cochin, the driver didn't charge me any money because that first ride was free. So I was quite amazed. And so how does this formula work for you when all of these guys in the same contested market work on the similar ways? And what is your secret sauce?
So the secret sauce is to innovate and to solve a pain. As I've said before, solving a pain, which is today is every person in this room driving their own cars or having a driver drive your cars. Right? Look at the challenge that is associated with. Right? The maintenance, is the driver here today? Is he or she late? Am I stuck in the traffic jam? Do I have road rage? So you're solving that pain where you're providing a service that eliminates some of the complexities of everyday life. What is the secret formula? The secret formula, and this goes back to the question you asked, is constant change and disruption. Right? We have to disrupt, we have to change, and there'll always be people who are opposed to change because it changes status quo. So I'll give you a small anecdote. When cars were invented, a century ago, there was a regulation that came out that in front of every car there's got to be a person who has to wave a flag. This was to protect the horse and carriage industry. That was the right regulation at that time. Right? We have certain regulations at this time. And there's always opposition from entrenched industries. There's always opposition from people where disruption has happened. But if we don't change together, if all of us don't change, somebody else will cause the disruption. So secret sauce is change and continual evolution.
You didn't mention there's a large secret sauce is the largest taxi service in the world without owning one taxi.
Yes, sir. Yeah, maybe this is the really last question.
We should answer the uninstall question, so you don't think we're not answering.
Yeah, maybe you can answer that question.
Hello. Yeah. My question is a very simple question. If you look back, about 100 years back, each technology has its own life cycle. As per the international thinkers and the experts, this IT technology and e-commerce will disappear from the world by 2025. And it is a hard fact, some new technology will replace this technology, e-commerce and this thing. I don't know what kind of technology. Work is already being done in US and European country. So I think my advice to the young startup is, they could have thought of some conventional method, make in India, some innovative method in making the product so that some employment could have also been generated, and the Prime Minister's vision of Make in India could have also been fulfilled instead of going in the e-commerce, which is a very, very small part of the total market.
I think a good question. I think the overall, if you look at the fundamental essence of human life, is that all of us get born, all of us die. But then we still live with full gusto, and we go ahead with lives in a way. So I think you don't look at when you're going to die, you look at the challenges now, and you're looking at creating something now. And I think if that sustains forever, fantastic. If it didn't sustain forever, then I think it's fine. I think we at least attempted something.
No, and I think the other way of saying it is that, sir, you're right. That's Moore's law. Technologies change completely and fundamentally. But the reality is that I think your advice to us, instead of saying don't do e-commerce, could maybe keep your eyes wide open and be the disruptors. So, if we were to get products to you without the internet, we should be the ones who know how to do that. I think that's how we need to be thinking, because what you're saying is going to happen, whether it's in 2020 or whether it's in 2050. But I think that's the theme. I think
we'll have to conclude this session. We are totally...
Uninstall rates are very high.
We are totally out of time. I'm sorry, sir, you can pick up that question offline. But I can tell you, somebody who's sitting outside of the entrepreneurial community, the quality of entrepreneurial talent we are seeing in the country, in the digital world, I think is very clearly unprecedented. The average age when we started investing was about 40 years, which was 2006, that number is now down to about 26, 27 years. And the fear of failure is gone. A number of industries which are being redefined. We already have 2 here, which is transportation and retail. And this phenomena of losing money to build monopolies actually is a global phenomenon. So it's not unique to India, it's happening all over the world, because the belief is that these are winner-take-it-all industries. And the thumb rule is that 70% of market cap will go to the winner, 20% to number 2, 10% to number 3, and if you're not 1, 2, 3, then you don't matter. So I think this is a phenomena that we are dealing with as investors all over the globe, that people are leveraging internet to create big monopolies. And to create that monopoly, you have to plow in capital. So with that, I'd like to thank our panelists and wish you all the best in building great companies.
Thank you, and thanks to all of you.
Which is
a great audience.
Thank you.
I would just request for everybody to be kindly seated, but that was indeed an interesting discussion, and clearly there's room for everybody to grow, isn't it? Because every vertical is seeing so much growth in our country, and though there may be a lot of skepticism, clearly the trend of walking up the entrepreneurial path is indeed growing, it's increasing, and maybe the country should foster this culture. All the very best, and thank you so much to all of our panelists. I would request Mr. Ashish Bagga, who is the Group CEO for the India Today Group, to kindly come on stage and give a small token of our appreciation for your time. A huge round of applause there, ladies and gentlemen.